peoples of the worldwide federated internet. What's good? This is Election Day Madness. I'm not gonna make any predictions, even though I have my thoughts. I'll tell you what I think. I'm not gonna necessarily say that this is the unadulterated truth. I've seen a lot of excitement in people who are voting for Trump. Where I live, it's pretty much a blue city. I'd say mostly Democratic leaning. And I've seen a lot of Trump flags, not necessarily a lot of MAGA hats, but I've seen definitely Trump supporters out in droves. There's this highway I drive on the way home, and for about the past 4 or 5 days now, there's a group on the overpass waving Trump flags, thin blue line flags, American flags. I've seen some Biden signs here and there. I'm not going to make it seem like I haven't seen any Biden support whatsoever, but I've seen a lot of Trump support, especially to be in what I would consider a deep blue city. The Trump rallies that I've seen online have been crazy, ridiculous. There was a report from the one they had in Pennsylvania somewhere, if I'm not mistaken. There's conflicting reports back and forth. The numbers shift by maybe a couple thousand. It was approximately 54 to 57,000 people showed up to a rally. I've seen these rallies online, and it is crazy. And I've also seen the Joe Biden and Kamala Harris events. No energy whatsoever. There's several events they had where people didn't even show up. If I had to judge according to what I see, I would say that it appears as though Trump is going to get reelected. Now, the polls, this is where it gets tricky. The polls are saying that Biden is leading by however much. I'm not going to get on to you about whoever you're voting for, whether it's Biden or Trump. That's Biden or Trump. That's not the point. My point is, what is going on with what I see versus what I'm hearing from some pundits and the polls. There's a contradiction. Either my eyes are wrong and all of this enthusiasm I'm seeing is just pockets of places and selective groups, or the polls are wrong. I can't say. I mean, it's very hard to say. Even people I follow who are objective, they're coming to some of the same conclusions I'm coming to. This election is probably one of the hardest elections in U.S. history to read if you're judging according to the polls, because the polls keep saying Biden is up in this state, Biden is up this much, Biden is up nationally 9 points, 10 points. I personally find that hard to believe, because it doesn't matter what you think about Trump, whether you hate him, whether you love him, whether you're a never Trump or whether you're on the fence. The one consensus I'm finding across the board, even with people who are lifelong Democrats that typically vote Democrat across the board no matter what, even when you hear these people, when they're asked about Biden, they're like, I don't know about this guy. That, I keep hearing that, and I keep seeing that with all the different news reports, but then the polls are saying Biden is up. Now contrast that with the people who support Trump. People who support Trump are all in. Even people there's different interviews of people who don't necessarily like how he talks, don't like the things he say, but they can point to tangible things he has done that they stand behind and support. They have policies that they're behind. So these people's attitude is pretty much, yeah, I don't like the way he talks, but he's getting stuff done, so I'll put up with that. That's the consensus I'm getting from what I'm seeing and hearing with my own ears and eyes. So when I contrast that with what I'm seeing in the polls, this is what I'm left thinking. If Donald Trump loses, I would be surprised, only because who he's going up against. I'll be honest with you, and this is not about, I'm not telling you who to vote for, who to support. That's not what this is about. I'm just telling you what I see. When I hear Joe Biden speak, he seems like a guy that, I don't know if he's going through a mental decline. I'm not a doctor, but he seems like a guy, not being a doctor, just judging off what I see, he seems to be a guy that's having trouble vocalizing his plan. Couple that with the fact that he's been in politics for 47 years. He picked Kamala Harris as his running mate, a woman that even during the Democratic primaries was widely unpopular, especially after she was nuked by Tulsi Gabbard. And that's another thing. I'm very surprised that the Democratic Party picked Joe Biden as their candidate when, and this is just my opinion, so don't get in an uproar about this. I believe Tulsi Gabbard could have beat Donald Trump easily, in my opinion. I think she came across as moderate. I think she's well spoken. She's a veteran. Served some tours overseas. That doesn't mean automatically, just because she's a veteran and served some tours overseas, that would make her a good leader. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that would have appealed to people who were maybe on the fence. She was very anti-war, which that's for the most part, Trump has been anti-war and in support of pulling our troops back home. And a lot of people have stood behind him on that alone. A lot of people have stood behind him on criminal justice reform alone. And if I'm not mistaken, Tulsi Gabbard was also very, very informed and very in support of criminal justice reform. So, well-spoken woman, a veteran who served overseas, who was, for the most part, seemed moderate. She seemed like a person that I might have disagreed with on some things, some issues that that could have been compromised on. Not necessarily me compromising and supporting her over these issues, but I think she could have won, and most people would have been like, all right, let's see what she'll do. But to the contrary, with Joe Biden, people who are on the fence about him are like, and people that just don't like his political career at all are just not rocking with him at all. He seemed like a similar candidate to Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election. That was another one that was like, of all people, you pick Hillary Clinton. Bernie Sanders would have probably during that time given Trump a run for his money. I don't think most people at that point realized how much Bernie Sanders was in support of socialism. Now the cat is out the bag. And that's another thing about Biden, is some of the things that he supports. There's many, and I'm watching interviews. And this is what I'm doing. I'm watching interviews. I'm seeing people talk. I'm listening to people who hate Trump. I'm listening to people who are on the fence about Trump. I'm listening to people who support Biden. I'm listening to people who are on the fence about Biden and people who hate Biden. But the one consensus I'm finding among immigrants who have fled countries that were socialist / communist, they are not rocking with Biden or, for the most part, the Democratic Party right now at all. So with that, All of that being said, and me just watching all of this, like I said, watching the fervent support for Trump, watching his rallies, he was doing like 4 or 5 rallies a day and they were packed, super packed. Kamala Harris and Biden do an event, very little people show up. Now, I don't know the details. Maybe they didn't want big crowds. Typically right now, Republicans and independents don't seem to be too terrified of the Rona. And people that are more left-leaning seem to be more concerned about the Rona. And maybe that has something to do with it. It's quite possible. Maybe these people will go out and vote. I voted, thankfully, 2 Saturdays ago. I voted early and in person. No, I was not terrified of the Rona. And that does not mean, that's another thing. I'm kind of segueing to something. People are under this impression that if you're not terrified of the Rona, you don't believe it's real. 2 things can be true at the same time. Rona is a real thing, but no, I'm not terrified of it. That doesn't mean I think I'm invincible and can't get sick, but I'm not going to walk around terrified. I'm going to live my life just like any other thing that has come around over the years. I'm just going to live my life. I'm not going to be reckless, but I'm definitely not going to be terrified. Those 2 things can exist at the same time. The fact that Biden seems to be, and I'm not making this a blanket statement. I'm just taking in account some things that he said. He seems to be in support of heavier hands on lockdowns. And there's many people across the country on both sides of the aisle that are not rocking with that at all. So with all of this being said, like I said, it's hard to call, and I'm definitely not going to make a blanket statement and say this is exactly what's going to happen, because it's hard. This is the conundrum I'm in. If I go according to what I can see and hear, there's no way Biden can beat Trump at all. Not even close. But if I go according to the polls and the political pundits, I'm like, maybe Biden wins. Maybe Trump just barely squeaks by and wins. And that's the conundrum. The one thing I do know, and many people have said this, if Trump wins in a landslide, not only are the polls broken, but these news pundits and news agencies no longer have any credibility. And with that said, I wonder, this is something I wonder about, and you don't have to agree. And this is, again, not me pushing who you should or shouldn't vote for. I honestly believe, based on the things that I've seen in the past, let's say 4 weeks, that the Democrat establishment, now when I say that, I want people to understand that I'm not saying people who are registered Democrats. I'm not calling you evil. I'm talking about the establishment, the Democratic Party. And also, me saying this doesn't mean the Republican Party is your savior. I'm just saying, everything I've seen over the past 4 weeks, it appears as though the Democratic Party has every intention to cheat during this election. That's just my opinion. Again, this is not necessarily a yay, this is going to happen, or nay, this is not going to happen. I don't know. I'll reiterate and I'll say this again. If I had to go according to my eyes and my ears, what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, there's no way Biden beats Trump at all. Like, not even a possibility. But if I go according to the news agencies, the different pollsters and the pundits, Biden might beat him and this might be close. I don't know. But the one thing I do know is, depending on the results of this election, the media might get exposed very heavily. Y'all know what it is. Stay frosty, people.